So I'm gonna, once I see when I'm up there, and walk around a little bit.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed your lunches.
Whatever feels right.
Well, you tell me, it is now my pleasure to introduce our afternoon keynote speakers, Mr. Brian Scudamore and Mr. Eric Church.
You think 15 to 20?
Brian Scudamore started his business in Vancouver, Canada at the age of 19, and later went on to franchise 1-800-GOT-JUNK as a way to expand operations. Today, 1-800-GOT-JUNK has 1,000 trucks on the road in about 180 locations in Canada, the United States, and Australia. Brian has received wide recognition in the media and the business community. 1-800-GOT-JUNK has celebrated appearances on the highly acclaimed Undercover Boss Canada, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, CNN, ABC Nightline, The Today Show, The Hour with George Stroumboulopoulos, and The View. His story has been told in Fortune magazine, Business Week, the New York Times, Huffington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, just to name a few. 1-800-GOT-JUNK is currently starring junk removal attraction on the hit A&E reality show Hoarders. In addition to interviews and guest appearances, Brian contributes written articles on building a business and entrepreneurship to many national magazines. In 2004, Brian was inducted into the Young Presidents Organization and served as a board member for the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. In 2007, Brian was named the International Franchise Association's Entrepreneur of the Year. Other accolades include Fortune Small Business's Best Bosses Award, Globe and Mail's Top 40 Under 40, a 3-time winner of a prestigious Best Company to Work For award. As a public speaker, Brian has brought his entrepreneurial success story to many conference stages, including the Fortune Small Business Magazine's National Conference. A strong believer in personal and professional development, Brian graduated from MIT's 4-year Birthing of Giants program and has subsequently completed several years of MIT's Board of Governors alumni program, Gathering of Titans. He is also a participant in a 9-year executive education program at Harvard University through YPO President's University. Our second keynote speaker, Eric Church, has joined 1-800-GOT-JUNK in November of 2011. As Chief Operations Officer, Eric's responsibility is to translate the 1-800-GOT-JUNK's vision into strategic and operational plans that are realistic and capable of delivering positive growth results for the company. Prior to arriving at the Junction, Eric led EF Education Canada, the largest privately held education company in the world, where he doubled the company's profits during tough economic times. Eric became president of EF Education Canada in 2007 after working with the company for 8 years. Eric is a hands-on leader who believes the best way to learn anything is by living it. So he traveled extensively to interact with customers and suppliers to make sure that EF was providing the best possible experience. The summer prior to joining 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Eric traveled to Kenya, Ecuador, Holland, France, England, Switzerland, and China. Before joining EF Education Canada, Eric was Senior Vice President at Eons, Senior Vice President for Student Online Solutions, Vice President for Plum Traders, a College Pro franchise owner, and a leadership consultant for Acacia Educational Foundation. In 1991, he moved to the US and worked in Chicago, Boston, and New York. Please join me in welcoming Brian and Eric to our stage.
You can go sit down, yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for having us. We meant to send the short bios, so I apologize for sending the resumes in by mistake. So we are here today to talk to you about entrepreneurship, about lessons learned through practical experience. I gotta be straight with you, I feel a little intimidated coming to speak to a university. I'm a high school dropout, I'm a university dropout. I went to 14 schools in my entire childhood. If you include kindergarten, the only one I graduated from. So a little intimidated because we've been asked, and Eric's sister is on faculty here. She asked us to come do a favor. I think she really wanted Eric to talk, maybe not me. But I am going to share a learning perspective from A road less traveled. I love to learn. I love ideas. I got a little timer here. I'm so ADD that I want to make sure I set this because you don't want me talking for hours. Okay, there we go. So going to teach you, or not teach you, going to share lessons learned along the way, and love to know how many of you, show of hands, are interested and can see yourself one day following an entrepreneurial or small business path. Wow, a lot of you. Okay, we got the right audience, so we know we're good. I'll start back with the day I started 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I didn't finish high school. I got bored. I spent a lot of time at the mall with my friends, and I said, okay, you know, all my friends were going to university, and I thought, well, I got to at least find a way to join them. I didn't want to be alone. I went out and was in a McDonald's drive-thru in Vancouver, saw this beat-up old pickup truck, plywood side panels built up on the box, filled with junk. It said Mark's Hauling on the side, and I thought, yeah, that's my opportunity, my way that I'm going to find to pay for college. I took $1,000 that I had in my bank, my life savings, put $700 into a beat-up old pickup truck, the rest into plywood, business cards, flyers, and off I went. I drove down alleys, laneways when someone had a pile of junk. Hi, I'm Brian from the Rubbish Boys. I called it Rubbish Boys because I had a vision for something bigger. It was really just me. But I got out there and I said, okay, I am going to drive this business and find a way to pay for my university. Business broke even in 2 weeks, paid for university, and found myself learning so much more about business on the street, so to speak. Getting out there, hands-on, learning the lessons of being an entrepreneur by just diving in worked best for me. The whole reason I didn't do well in school was, again, ADD. I'm seeing squirrels right now in the room. I found that I couldn't sit still in a classroom, but I love to learn. I'm a sponge, so I had to learn by doing and from asking others. 1993, I was 23 years old, and I came to the first sort of crossroads in my life. My dad is a liver transplant surgeon. He always used to tell me, you know, Brian, save up every penny for university, and I did. And I took that money and put it into a business. But what I said to my dad was, you know, I'm learning more about business running one. I think I'm going to drop out. And my dad just looked at me. You're going to drop out of university with 1 year left to be a full-time junk man? And I said, you got it, Dad. Isn't that awesome? And he didn't think it was so awesome, but we're certainly friends today. We realized that we had to get out and build the business with not a lot of cash. I didn't get out and raise money. I've never raised money. But what I did is I said, how do I get the press involved? Felt like I had a good story. My girlfriend at the time said, you know, go out and call the press. So I picked up the phone, called the Vancouver Province, our largest newspaper, and said, guess what? Got a great story for you. Must have been a slow news day because they picked the story up and said, awesome. Put us on the front page of the Vancouver Province. Our truck, 738 Junk was our phone number, a big billboard on the side of the truck. It was a full-page ad on the front page of the province. Bus drivers, as we were driving the truck that day, were holding the thing out of the window going, this is you guys. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I remember Ralph's Audio had an ad that they paid $5,000 for, a tiny little ad on the front page. We had this huge thing for free. That got me hooked into the power of free press. And I know when the bio was being read, there's a lot of press in there. It wasn't meant to brag. It's meant to show that for not a lot of money, sometimes none, you can get out there and get Oprah Winfrey, Wall Street Journal by just sharing your passionate story with others. I guarantee every single person in this room that goes out and starts a business, you'll face ups, you'll face downs, but you will always be living a story. Get out and tell that story as you build. So I dropped out of school and thought, okay, I'm going to build this. I went from 1 truck to 3, thought I knew what I was doing, wanted to make my dad proud. I can grow this thing. And the first major mistake I made was I had 11 people. We were $500,000 in revenue. I felt proud that we'd grown to that point. 5 trucks, but I had all the wrong people. At least 9 of them were bad apples. They spoiled the rest of the bunch. And I said, okay, brought them all in for a morning meeting. I said, guys, I got some bad news for you. I'm sorry, but we got to end this relationship. I took responsibility for that because I was the leader. It was no one else's fault. I recruited them. I gave them a job. I either didn't find the right people and treat them right or didn't give them the love, support, direction that they needed. I didn't share a vision with them. I didn't tell them where I was going, and they weren't the customer service professionals that I wanted if we were to build the FedEx of junk removal. Clean, shiny trucks, friendly uniformed drivers, on-time service, upfront rates. So I took these guys and said, okay, thank you, goodbye. We parted ways. I made it out alive, and then I said, okay, time to rebuild the business. And I learned the lesson that it's all about people, finding the right people and treating them right. Any of you that go on to build a business, please remember that. I've gotten that advice from so many mentors before me who've said, don't ever, ever, ever compromise on the people you bring into your organization. It's the worst mistake I think anyone could make. Because if people don't believe in your vision, where you're going, and how you'll get there, you'll never get there. Started again, rebuilt the business. Things started to take off, and I thought, I talk so much about where we're going, I should tell people exactly what that looks like. I joined the entrepreneur organization, which was my education. Because I couldn't get a real MBA and sit through the books and the learning and all the amazing professors, I said, I've got to create my own MBA. So I did. I gave myself my own MBA. I called it my mentor board of advisors. I got out there and learned from others. Picked up the phone and just went out and met people. And sometimes they were big names, like the founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz. Sometimes it was the founder of Subway, Fred DeLuca. And I'd just ask for help, and they'd give it. And it blew my mind, the access to people, by just picking up the phone, sending an email. So I had this mentor board of advisors, started to build something, and I realized the entrepreneur organization, there were so many wonderfully smart, talented individuals there with sexier businesses than junk removal. And I started comparing myself to others, a terrible thing to do. So I went to my parents, they had a little summer cottage, and I sat on the dock, and I took out a sheet of paper, and I said, okay, Brian, enough of this doom loop downward spiral. Take out a sheet of paper and write what it could look like. If only I could imagine a clear, vivid future, a painted picture, I called it. And I took one sheet of paper, double-sided, and it was, you're probably too young to know the movie Jerry Maguire, but if you ever have seen it, Jerry Maguire moment, writing this manifesto. And I said, okay, we will be in the top 30 metros in North America, the FedEx of junk removal, we'll be on the Oprah Winfrey show, crazy stuff. But I took that document, was then on a high, and I started sharing that with people around me, my employees. It divided them into two. Those that said, this is awesome, I'm on board, I want to be a part of building this. With those who said, what are you smoking? This is crazy. And they ultimately left. And so that document became the future. By the end of 2003, December 31st, that painted picture would be in effect. And as we got close to it, we're 3 months out, we were in the top 28 of 30 metros. We'd been on Oprah. All these things were happening, and it was like I crystal balled the future. But what I really did was I gave a document that said, this is where we're going. I don't know how we'll get there. And you'll hear I'll talk about Eric shortly. I chose where. We needed a team that would figure out the how. Walt Disney always had been famous for saying it's kind of fun to do the impossible. I love imagining impossible things and then turning to our team of brilliant minds, our franchise partners, our leadership team, and they go, okay, but Brian thinks it's possible. Do we think it's possible? Let's figure out a way to make it happen. So we started to build the business. I converted the name from the Rubbish Boys 738 Junk. People sometimes thought it was two companies to one simple name and phone number, 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And the great part was I came up with this number, but now I got to make sure the number's available. I couldn't find who owned the number. I finally tracked down, after 60 phone calls, the Department of Transportation in Idaho, who was the proud owner of a working number. I took an unconventional path to get the phone number. First thing I did when I found out the phone number wasn't available after a couple of calls was I hired a design firm to create a logo. 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the blue and green, exactly what it is today. Ridiculously crazy to most people, paying money to get a logo on a phone number you're never going to get. But by seeing that logo and seeing that vision, I knew that I could will it to happen, to make it happen somehow. 60 phone calls, get in touch with Michael from the phone room. He's like, you know what, you called me 3 times, dude. Like, here's the fax number. Sign the AT&T forms, the number's yours. I think he wanted me out of his hair, but I called 2 days later just to thank him, send his team for lunch, whatever. Michael was no longer there. No idea what that was about, but I got the phone number. So we started building the business. We took the first franchise partner, who was a young, relatively inexperienced person like myself, Paul Guy. He was going to Toronto every weekend visiting his girlfriend. I said, why don't you just move there and start a business? Why don't you take 1-800-GOT-JUNK? And he did. And it started to take off. He did $1 million in revenue in his first full calendar year. He was blown away, I was blown away. It took me 8 years to get to $1 million, so I felt very envious of his faster growth. But we realized we could build something together. And that whole model, we've grown into O2E Brands as a parent company. We've got 4 different companies. 1-800-GOT-JUNK that we built for 22 years, or started, we built 22 years in and then created Wow One Day Painting, a painting business where we paint people's homes in a day. Then we went on to You Move Me, a moving company, where we claim to move people, not just their boxes, adding customer experience to a very fragmented industry similar to what 1-800-GOT-JUNK was. And Shack Shine, house detailing, windows, gutters, power washing. These 4 brands tie into our O2E Brands brand, which Eric and I created together. And what O2E Brands is taking ordinary businesses and making them exceptional, taking amazing people and creating exceptional customer experience together. So together is really part of our mantra, and really everything we do. Our goal is to get to 2021 with $1 billion in revenue. I throw out the billion not to impress anybody. It's not about the money. It's about creating something significant. 10 brands where we have great leaders, people that are fired up to create wonderful businesses and a better world together. So if I think of, we got to $100 million in revenue with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and things weren't so rosy anymore. We were amazed we got there through a franchise model, all this great press, and then things started to implode. Why? Cameron Harold, who I was the best man in his wedding, we're still friends today. We kept in touch a couple days ago through text. He helped me grow from 2 million to 106 million. But when you have 2 people that see squirrels in every room who are to fire-ready aim, it doesn't work. We were really so entrepreneurial and so charting the course way too quickly that it was irresponsible for the company. So we had to part ways from a business perspective, and I had to go out and hire another leader. My second attempt was I overhired. I brought in a COO and president from Starbucks, their US operations, and I thought, oh wow, this person that's working in Seattle wanted to come back to Canada, where she was from, to work for our little company and help us grow it. I mean, I landed the jackpot. But 14 months into the business, together, she and I almost bankrupted the company that we built for 20 years. The recession didn't help, but it was much greater than that. Our vision wasn't aligned. Day by day, we got further apart. We got along. It wasn't that we didn't respect and admire each other, but I think in the end of the day, it was we really didn't see the same place, and we really didn't see how to get there together. And so almost bankrupting the company, almost getting mutinied out of my own business, darkest days of my business career. People often ask, what would you change if going back? Would you take away that moment? Are you kidding? That's where the learning comes in. You don't learn during the great easy times, you learn during the tough times. And so one of the toughest moments of my life, but it reminded me, if it's all about finding the right people and treating them right, it really matters every single person you bring into your company. So I'll end with a quick story before I turn it over to Eric, who will give a different perspective of, I'm a school dropout, Eric's a school completer. I don't know what you call it, whatever, just made that up. But what I found is the Starbucks leader who came in, failing in that scenario, and why it was so important for me is I had to understand why it failed. And it failed because I recruited the wrong person for me. She's running a great business in BC, uber successful and doing great, but it was the wrong business for me. And what I learned was I took out a sheet of paper, because that's what I do in these moments, and I lined down the middle. And on one side, I said, what are all the things I love to do and I'm good at in running a company? What are all the things that I'm bad at, that I suck at, that I hate to do on the other side? No surprise, the other side was a little bit longer, but I took that list and I said, okay, I need to find someone who has that flipped. The things I love and I'm bad at, yeah, maybe they're not great at, but the things I hate to do and I'm bad at, they love. And so I put together a little vision, a painted picture of what describing that person. I sent it out to my networks. I interviewed 75 potential COOs across the country. And 3 people, independent of each other, emailed me back when I said, who is this person? Who does this describe? And they said, Eric Church. 3 different people. And those people didn't give me multiple names. They just said one person, Eric Church. That's the only person on the planet this describes. And so we started meeting, we started talking, working together, and we created what we call a 2-in-the-box leadership model. You often have one person at the top of the company, but a yin-yang working together, two heads are better than one model is what works for us. Vision, culture would be my role, execution, rigor, discipline, accountability is Eric's, and it's like magic working together. So I throw that out there as a lesson that when people go out and build a business, they try and do everything on their own. And then in the beginning, that's great, you have to. But then as a business scales and grows, when you want to really build something special, you need to find someone that especially fits well with your talents, complementary sort of skill sets. So I'm going to introduce Eric Church, and we'll let Eric chat for a little bit. And look at my timer, right on time.
Right on time. Thank you,
There we
Brian.
go.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
goodness for a timer. Thanks, Eric. You want to get up there?
Stay there. I love the story of 1-800-GOT-JUNK and how it started. Why I love the story of 1-800-GOT-JUNK and how it was started is because it was about vision. And if there's something I've learned through my career, it's the only thing, one of the only things that truly matters in accomplishing a goal is knowing where you're going. Otherwise, if you don't have a place to go, any road will take you there. Anybody will probably remember that from Alice in Wonderland. But vision is absolutely true. Whether it's been working with Brian or anybody else, it has really come down to, and it's interesting as you hear the story, Brian doesn't talk about the techniques of junk removal, how you stack a box, what you do, how you market, how you find people, because it's actually not that relevant to running and starting a business, to leading people. It is about vision. So I believe that it's not what you sell, but rather what you stand for as an organization. So as you go out into the world, you think about what you want to do, think about what you stand for. And then build your business, build your future, build your career around that. And I'm going to tell a story that maybe illustrates that. Is I loved working for a company, a Swiss-based company, it was an education company worldwide. I loved working for this company. I loved working for the founder of this company. He had started the business in 1965 in Sweden and had expanded into North America, and I was very fortunate to be one of those people involved in that expansion. And I thought, I'm going to stay in this company forever. I love what we do. I love travel. I love our mission. And in particular, the fellow who's leading this company, the CEO, fall him off a cliff. And so a couple years later, decided, what am I going to do with this business? So he passed the business on to his sons. So the sons came into the business, and what very quickly happened was people became disengaged. My job didn't change, what I was doing didn't change, the mission of the company didn't change, nothing really fundamentally changed in this $2-3 billion company. But what changed was the person at the top with the vision where they're going, and they did not share a vision that was easy to buy into or you wanted to buy into. And so as people started to realize this, he realized I have to pay people more money to stay, so bribing people to stay, but people still weren't staying. And it was a very, very clear illustration to me of why the CEO of a company, the visionary of a company, is so key, so vital. And so when I look at my roles in many organizations, it is, I kind of cheat a little bit, or a lot, actually, I would say, when I look at how to be successful in business. Because I want to find somebody and partner with somebody who's got a vision. And that helps you succeed tremendously. And so if I use this example of this father and son, it was the only difference was the vision that the CEO had or didn't have. So I know people talk a lot about the CEOs in the news. Are they overpaid with compensation models? Shareholders are up in arms. But if you look at companies that are truly successful and truly exceptional, they have leaders at the top. And whether that's in politics, whether that's the military, whether it's in business, it is true. So I like to think in our organization, what we try and build is we try to build leaders within our organization. And so we might be a junk removal company. We might clean windows. We do paint houses in a day. We move people and not just their boxes. But more than that, we are a leadership company. We develop and help people who already have the potential to be even better. We have something in our organization that we call going dark. And what that means is you not only is it recommended that you go away on vacation, turn off your email for at least 2 weeks, if not 4 weeks at a time, because we have 5 weeks vacation for everybody who starts with the organization from day one. But it's mandatory. It's required that you turn off your phone, don't get involved in work, don't call anybody at work, let things not go on. The reason is because I want people to recharge their battery, but even more than that, I want everybody in the organization who can then step into that role as they grow into, as that person's on vacation, they can grow into that role. They can spread their wings. Give them the opportunity for growth. And if the one thing that the technology has done for us in a negative way, it's taken away people's autonomy and their ability to think on their own and problem solve. So how do we remove part of that challenge of being always be accessible and giving people the opportunity to stand up and do the right thing and make mistakes? Because we do have in our company a philosophy, we call it a WTF philosophy. Like that? Stands for willing to fail. Sometimes it stands for the other thing too. But we do have this willingness to fail. We have a desire to fail. If you aren't trying hard enough, if you aren't falling down, and we learned this lesson, I think, from our father, Elizabeth, that and I was skiing with my father, and as a kid, and if you weren't falling down on every single run, you weren't trying enough. And I remember distinctly this day my father pushing me with a ski pole, trying to get me to stand up and ski some more after falling down. But it's that willingness and that desire to fail. And we have to embrace that. Because in our organization, some of the best things that we find, best things that we improve, are the opportunities we take to fail. And we take great pride in that. So we have a daily huddle. Every single day, 10:55, we bring the entire organization together for 7 minutes. That's a big meeting. But we do it quick, and we move through it very, very systematically so everybody participates. And if you're not in the office, you're not in our Vancouver office, you're not in our Toronto office, you're remote, you're doing it on your smartphone. But there's a section in there which is missing systems. And the expectation is any missing system, big or small, is brought up, and you can challenge somebody. And the expectation is somebody's going to own that and bring it back, and the next day or the next week, have a solution and solve that. Everybody has to stand up and take responsibility and accountability, and also be really proud of the things that we failed at, and then what have we done with that. So I encourage you all to think about, what are you willing to fail at? One of the things that has made Brian a great leader, and in fact why so many people are attracted to work with Brian, is he has the skills that I like to say that if you're over 7, you don't have. So I'm not calling a 7-year-old.
I act like one sometimes.
But when you talk to a child, they don't know what is impossible. And as Walt Disney says, and as Brian has said, it's kind of fun to do the impossible, but a child doesn't know what's impossible, and they just do it. And they're not afraid. They fall down, they get up. They don't know it's supposed to hurt. They move on. And as Brian has led our organization, has led us in a way that is really unique, because it's not just fun to do the impossible, it's absolutely essential to disintermediate, to change the way people look at business, to look at how we do things. Go do things in a different way. How do you disrupt the business that you're in so that you get better? And that's how we grow. And it's how we go from 100 million to 200 million in 4 years, and that's how we're going to go from 200 to 400 million in the next 4 years, by continuing to disrupt what we do every day and taking chances and willing to make mistakes. One of the greatest things about being in our franchise system, is creating a franchise system that we have, is that it's crowdsourcing. This isn't the systematic approach to, here's how you flip a burger. It's, we want all of our franchise partners to go out there, do a great job, focus on what's important. It's not what you sell, it's what you stand for. And when they find new things, they bring it back, and we systematize that, and we share that back out with everybody. So it's a fantastic collaborative environment. So it is about this 2 in the box, like how you work together. So whether it's in your work life, your personal life, at school, whatever it is, finding out what your strengths and weaknesses are, as Brian went down the left column, the right column, super important, because then you know what to focus on. And we're commonly asking in our organization, what is your exceptional? So ordinary to exceptional. That's what we stand for. You cannot be exceptional at everything. Everybody has 1 or 2 or 3 things that are truly exceptional at, usually just one thing. And so if you know that about yourself, how do you complement your strength with somebody else's strength? And then how do you become a bigger and stronger entity as you move forward? So we're going to leave some time for some questions at the end. So I ask you, think about what you would like to know, what mistakes we've made, how the organization has grown, what it's like to work together. Whatever the questions you have, I'm going to ask you to think about what those are now, so that when we wrap up in a couple of minutes, that we can really enter into some really good dialogue with everybody here in this auditorium. But let me ask you a couple questions, Brian, if I could.
Sure.
So, the questions that, in the deepest despair, in the time when you were really thinking, like, I'm not sure this is going to work. I know you talked about the vision, but what really gets you out of bed that morning and just to move forward? Like, what is this? We would say beyond the vision, in those times of despair, how do you move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks for taking me back to the dark days. But I think so much of it is the vision and seeing the picture of where you believe you can go. Even if you're struggling and there's road bumps along the way, it's still just having some blind faith that you're going to get there. But the thing that keeps me going on any of the bad days, which, I think I'm such an optimist, there's been so few bad days, because you look at the learning and you say, this is just a stepping stone to something greater. I needed to get the wrong COO to get the right one and have that magic happen. But every single thing that ever happens in the business, I look at it and I say personally, what is something potentially much greater that is going to come from this tough day or this tough decision, tough moment? And it's the people. While it might sound a little cliche, we have this culture, an open office environment, no private offices, not for us, not for anyone in the company. There's this buzz and energy. People that come in describe it as electric. They're like, what are you drinking at O2E Brands? People come in and they can see the smiles, and they're real, and they're all the time, because we hire happy people. We don't believe in motivating anyone. We want to give them a compelling, motivated vision of where we're going, and we want to know, are you in or are you not? And finding happy people, recruiting people that want to build something together, and then supporting each other every step of the way. If something's going on, personal or business, we come together and we support each other. But it is the vision. The vision is so much of that planting a seed of what could it look like. Show of hands, how many of you have a vision for your life or your career? Keep your hands up if it's written down. Very few people have it written down. So I believe in the power of putting a goal, putting something you want in your life. If there's that law of attraction, if you believe in that as I do, it's the magic of putting something down in writing and then constantly looking at it till one day you make it happen. And one of the best stories I can remember, this is a practical take-home for all of you who want to create a vision. The best public speaker I've ever heard in my life by far is a man named Benjamin Zander. He's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. Not a big fan of classical music. I almost didn't go to the event. I thought, what am I going to learn from someone who's a conductor? Thank goodness I went, because the way he spoke and how he inspired and the stories he told. And one of my favorite stories was, he has a bunch of youth classes in Boston that he teaches, youth orchestras. And the first day of school, they don't do anything with an instrument. They sit down and he says, I've got an envelope, piece of paper, and a pen for all of you. He passes them out. And he said, I'd like each of you to write a letter, put it in the envelope and seal it. The letter will start with, Dear Mr. Zander, I received X mark in your class this year because ... And what did that get them to do? It got them to choose their grade and write a letter as to why they got that grade. And remarkably, this is what blows my mind, is 90+% every single year, he's done this for years, he doesn't open up the letters, the kids open up the letters, the students, but he gives out the grades, he asks the students to look at their letter and open it up. 90+% of the time they match. Not everybody asks for an A. Some people C+, a B. But why do they get that grade? It's because that's the way they saw themselves. That's the vision that they painted in that letter of why I will be a B student, an A+ student, whatever it is. So a simple letter to yourself of, if you start a business, what it will look like in 3 years. Seal it, put it away, or better yet, don't seal it, but share it with everybody you know around you. And it's incredibly powerful, the most powerful thing I think I've ever done.
And I think that really adds to the concept of vision and execution. And so we have very practical ways in our organization on how we ensure that we have vision and we have execution. So it gets right down to like, wow, this is an unbelievable place we want to go. Is how do we get there? How do you break it down into a digestible way that you can execute against it? And people go to school for years how to learn to do that, but it is about accountability. Accountability to yourself and accountability to everybody around you. And ultimately, I think that is how we are achieving the growth we are, because we're accountable to one another. Our franchise partners, we have almost 4,000 people in our organization, and our ability to hold one another accountable, share those practices, be transparent, and know where we're going, and know what's working and know what's not working. So what I'm going to do is is there any questions now before I maybe pepper with a few more questions, specifically maybe what you'd like to learn maybe about our business, because I certainly don't want to go on and talk about something that you're not interested in. So if there's any questions about our business, I'm happy to answer those. Yes?
My name is Alex. I'm a PR student and I work with the courses. Stated earlier that you're in the business of also developing leadership. I was wondering what specific programs or processes you have in place to develop leadership, and how do you select people to actually develop?
That's an excellent question. Congratulations and thank you for serving our country. So we have what we call our leadership way. So we focus on people leading self. So you got to lead yourself, leading others, and then leading organizations. So we break down the organization that way. And then within each of those, we have very specific areas for people to focus on, whether that's communication, whether it's specific skills, whether it's speaking as a leader. But everybody does a self-assessment of where they believe that they are and what they want to work on, and what is the job that they want to have in their second job. That's the next job. What's the next job that they want to have? So that is, people sort of self-select into what they want to do, and we have internal coaches that we use, and then we bring people outside to that. But everybody works towards that. In our annual reviews, we have IDPs, individual development plans, where people very specifically state, here's what I want to do. We put money aside to work with people on those particular goals and help them highlight where they want to go. So it's a real investment, but the biggest single investment isn't our money or our time, it's the time and energy of the individual who sets themselves those goals. We have a very, very strong internal mentor network, but I think one of the most exciting things and most interesting things we do is 101 life goals. Everybody in our organization spends the time to write down, what are the 101 life goals I have? And then we help people do that. So we put money into that program, but more importantly, if they can define what they want to do in 101 life goals, they find other people in the organization who do that. And so some of the things are social, some of them are work-related, but they self-select into those areas that they want to focus on. And we put a lot of time and energy into our programs. Certainly on a monthly basis, we have courses that people sign up for. Quarterly basis, we take all of our managers out of the organization and we work on situational leadership. We work on all sorts of different things that help them in their careers. So there's some of the things we do. We could talk about it for hours, but it gives you a bit of a highlight of the things that we do internally for our staff in the junctions, we call it, the head office, and then we roll that out to all of our franchise partners. And that's far more challenging, because now we've got a place where we're training the trainer to work with their teams. But the way we're going to grow to $1 billion and $2 billion is by having great internal leaders. Just like the military, you move people through the ranks, and that's how we become strong. You keep that institutional knowledge within the organization and not have it leave. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we have workshops on how to get people not to be negative and be positive, but we give workshops on 101 life goals, and we'll teach about vision and law of attraction. And people will dream up goals that they never thought they could imagine. They put them in writing, and then they suddenly got this bucket list of things that it's a great way culturally for people in the organization to get to know people personally and different interests. Other ways for people to help them accomplish their dreams. One of my 101 life goals was to give Oprah Winfrey a big hug. I think she's one of the most phenomenal leaders and inspirational entrepreneurs. And so my way of doing that was getting on the show and then giving her a big hug in the green room. And we put those goals out there in a way that we can share them publicly. An example is we created this big wall. We had this massive empty wall in our old office, which we called the Junction, our original office. And I wanted to teach people about vision. So we came up with this big decal that said, "Can you imagine?" with a big question mark. And it got people thinking, well, what could you imagine in the business or for yourself that we could make happen? So I put up there, imagine being featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, my name below it. Everyone thought it was crazy, but 14 months later it happened. People put up there things like, can you imagine being 1-800-GOT-JUNK being featured on the side of a Starbucks cup? They used to have these campaigns called The Way I See It with quotes from people in the acting business and TV and poetry and famous people. And somehow this woman in our office, Andrea, reached out to Starbucks and said, oh, I think Brian could write a quote. And Starbucks helped me write it because didn't finish school. And it was something to the effect of, you are what you can't let go of. How profound. But it said, the founder and CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We had our company name on 10 million Starbucks cups worldwide for free. Someone said, can you imagine a Harvard Business case study written about us? I mean, the list goes on, but it's getting people to dream and think big, and it's focused on the law of attraction and what could happen versus any negative roadblocks and things that are in the way. Thank you.
I believe two leader is really hard to be in the same boat because I believe the boat gonna sink with two leaders. And really, I would like to know what's your secret to keep working together? And did you really face any challenge for that? Did you get to the point when one of you think, no, I can't work with this guy anymore? He's not really do things like as I wanted. Is it really easy, as I feel from what you are saying? Please, if you can tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah,
sure.
Thank you. You want to go first?
You can go first.
Sure.
I'd like to hear your perspective.
It's not easy. A lot of work up front. And when we think about two in a box, you typically think of an org chart. You have a box top, you have the CEO. And the reality is that can't really be done effectively by one person. It's my opinion, and lots of organizations do it. But the secret is being really clear up front with what areas of responsibilities that people have, and having a very clear idea of what our vision is and how we're going to get there. We spend a day a month together looking at our strategy. What does it look like? Not necessarily what are we going to do next month, but how is all the things that we're working towards for our 4-year strategy coming together? So it's not really about the small details. It's really about the long-term view of where we're going and how are we getting there, and how, is our leadership the right leadership that is going to take us there? So we challenge ourselves to know that. But it really comes down to check your ego at the door. This is not an ego decision. This is not a conversation around ego. And it's knowing what we're talking about, being prepared, and having clarity of roles. And in fact, anybody who is on our leadership team, I think it's interestingly, they were highly skeptical of this initially because they thought, oh, well, Brian's going to ask me to do this and Eric's going to ask me to do this. But there's great, I think, confidence in the structure we've set up where people see that this is in lockstep. And so we don't, if there is disagreement, we don't leave the room until we're united in that. And that comes back to us looking at our long-term strategy and understanding how do we get there.
That's great. I think the work up front, you're absolutely right on. We sat down and did this matrix of all the different things we would work on, who would do what, where there was crossover, where there wasn't, and we thought through it before we entered that relationship of let's partner on this and succeed. And then we communicate. And the first year, I think, was just building a friendship, building trust, and really making sure that we were going to nail this thing. And when you've got the trust, you divide and conquer in a way that works for everybody, and we can get more done. I'll go work in my area of strength. Eric will work in his area of strength. We'll come back. We'll talk about what we need help on and what we need to do differently. And it's amazing. I mean, it is real. It does. We might make it seem easy because it's real and it works, but it does take that constant communication and huge levels of trust. There's so many decisions that I never even know happen because I don't need to know. And an entrepreneur, anyone running a business, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you do get further away from things. But you have to know what things to stay away from, and having your ego let you step back.
To layer on top of that, I have worked with other entrepreneurs in the past, and I either worked with them directly or I just know them through different circles. And what I look at is many entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs, hold themselves back at whatever cap that they can personally manage themselves because they don't trust anybody else, they don't let go. That is ultimately what's holding so many small businesses back in sort of Canada and the United States, is it's the leaders' inability to empower others, find the right people, hire people better than they are, and kind of check their ego. And anybody who is capped, they need to take a look in the mirror and understand where maybe some of those challenges are. And so what Brian has done as an entrepreneur is one of the most difficult things to do, because you're giving up, to some degree, your baby and giving it to somebody else, and that is a real challenge. So I have made it a career out of working with entrepreneurs who are willing to do that. I've never been the person to start the business, but I'm the person who can come in and partner with that person to take it to the next level. And so as much as Brian will say, I really needed to find somebody like Eric to do this, I also needed to find somebody like Brian to do what I want to do. So it's a two-way street, and so that's how you find that match. And it's not easy, but it's worth taking the effort to do it. Thank you.
Thanks. No questions?
So I have a good question. So for the companies that you own, guys, for the way that you manage them, every leader has different skills that everyone needs, right? But what are the skills that you think that a leader should have, the essentials? Because every industry has different, requests, I guess. So what do you think that are the most important skills that a leader needs?
So I'm going to suggest that it's going to sound crazy and say a leader needs to know how to lead, right? And the skills that they need to do that is not necessarily the skills of, they don't have to have financial acumen to do it. They may not have to have the marketing strength, but they need to be able to lead people. And to lead people, you need to understand people. You need to have empathy towards what's important to them. And you need to be able to paint a picture of a strategic view and vision of where you're going that they want to follow and they can follow. So setting people up for success based on where we're going, give them the autonomy to do it, and coach them. It's a lot of coaching. And so I'd be hard-pressed to imagine finding a leader that isn't a good coach, a great leader. And that is, so I would say as a primary piece is being able to coach and lead. To lead people, you need to be a great coach, and to empower and know how to hire well. That's would be a very significant part. Because we always say this, A players, hire A players. B players, hire C players. So you always have to hire somebody better than yourself in an organization. We have 4 companies with 4 different brand presidents. They have tons of autonomy in their business. And our goal is really to help guide and coach them around achieving their strategic goals. So it's a question of leadership as opposed to tactical skills.
Yeah, I would maybe layer on, I agree with everything Eric said. And to me, leadership is about followership. If you don't have followers, you're not leading. People often think, and I'm sure we've all met people where you're working on a project, an assignment, a business, whatever it is, where you're working with a leader and they think they're leading, but they're not being effective and no one wants to follow. They're doing things to try and sabotage, there's politics and so on. So it's being the right type of leader for the group of people that will follow you. And and then again, vision. I think vision is where leadership starts. If you don't know where you're going as a leader and you're not self-aware, how will anyone ever follow you? Any other questions? In the back there?
In a podcast with TGIM, you said that the thirst for knowledge is essential to your success. And you actually shown that when you waited outside a radio station for Richard Branson just so you could connect with him for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
You've joined the long list of successful people who never graduated from a higher learning institution. Mm-hmm. Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, so on and so forth. Mark Twain once said that he'll never let school get in the way of his education. And a great example of this is Malcolm X, who is world-renowned for what he learned inside of a prison. So the common theme here seems to be this thirst for knowledge between everybody that's successful. And I know you're saying here about vision and how that's the reason for your success, but when you ask the question to the crowd here, pretty much everybody raised their hand. So what makes your vision different from those of others?
I think the vision is about the people. It's about building something much bigger together. And there is a culture with a thirst of knowledge. We love to learn. I mean, one of the things I admire most in Eric is how, he goes out and constantly asks our franchise partners and vendors and anyone around us questions. I do the same. We're very curious. And, because school didn't work for me doesn't mean school isn't a great thing, of course. I mean, you're all here. School didn't work for me because of the structure, and I wanted control over what I wanted to learn and the methodology that worked for me. And so it just meant getting out there and finding people to talk to. I buy a lot of books. I don't know why I'm telling you this right now because it doesn't sound good. I buy a ton of books. I don't read them. My wife's a voracious reader. I'm a voracious book buyer. But it's because I want more knowledge. So I might go through 2 pages of a book, or I might get something out of it years down the road when I see it on my bookshelf. But the learning's there, and it's just being a sponge and being able to pull answers. What makes our vision different? The only thing I can think of that really makes us as a company unique is, again, we're building something much bigger together versus anything we would have chosen to build alone. We're a very social business. We would love to bring on more entrepreneurs. Someone who goes, I've thought about business, starting my own, but starting a franchise just doesn't feel right to me when I think of McDonald's or Tim Hortons and the strictness, the systems. Well, we're somewhere in between. We're this entrepreneurship, this model where someone can find an entry point into the O2E Brands platform and build something great with us, with collaborative, crowdsourcing type approach. So I think that's what makes us different. The end of the day, the impact that I think that Eric and I feel we leave on the world is if we've grown leaders, we've grown entrepreneurs, we've grown people that have built things together and had a lot of fun growing things.
Hi guys, I just have one question going back to the vision part here. I know when Brian first started your company, you had a vision. How has your vision changed over from when you first pictured yourself doing this business, and have you adapted?
Yeah, the vision has changed in terms of, I think, adding more brands and more people and just more of a great thing. I've got 3 young kids, and it's hard when you get the first one and you're not sleeping at night, but then once you get over that, you're like, yeah, let's have some more. And then you just, more of a great thing. And so with brands, I think it's that same feeling. Shack Shine, our newest brand, we were looking at, I was looking at getting my gutters done, couldn't find anyone, someone introduced me to someone, and then boom, we're in another business. But what Eric and I fell in love with was Dave Nate, the managing director of Shack Shine. His passion, his vision, his leadership, and what he was going to build, that's what we wanted to be partners with him on, because bringing him into the O2E Brands family meant we've got more of a great thing. So brand 5, 6, 7, those will come in probably a similar type way. So anything to add?
Yeah, I would say the vision change, that doesn't particularly change. If you think what you kind of envision that in your first painted picture to where we're going, well, there's a lot of tactics that change in there. There's a lot of scale that changes. There's a lot of things as we, over the next 5 years, we think about machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of the things that are coming down the pipe. Is that going to change how we run our business and what we do? Absolutely. But does it change the vision? No, it doesn't. The vision is a place to be. All the other stuff is just how you're going to get there. Any other questions? We have a question in the back. Oh, over here, sorry.
And we're happy to stay and take as many questions as you have, and we'll let someone here, maybe Gabby, guide when we've got to end. And if someone does have a question that doesn't get answered, you can always get in touch with us. You can email me, Brian at 1-800 or brian.scudamore@o2ebrands.com, or go to our website. But happy to answer stuff offline as well. So, sorry, did you have a question, or were we being told to end? Oh, here we go.
So you've talked about your leadership style and how it generates autonomy. And I think leadership and management are one of the things that can really sort of make or break a business. How do you find that the leadership style you have affects the quality of the atmosphere of your business?
Great question. So if we talk about, if we think what's management, you can say management is doing things the right way. Leadership is doing the right things. So it's how do you manage through that process and how do you manage through change? And I think the expectation, which creates a different atmosphere in an organization, is the expectations that we want everybody in the organization to move up and to be a leader. And that doesn't mean they have to lead the organization, but they need to lead their area. So whether you're leading yourself, leading a team, or leading the organization, the expectation is that you're going to be a leader. We have a lot of people in our organization who come out of our sales center. These are people who come into our company who are typically thinking, oh, this is just another call center. We have a lot of managers in our organization who have come out of there, not because of their education, not because of what their academic credibility, but because they've learned to lead and understand our business and where we're going. And so there's an excitement about what they're able to do. And so we always say, as we grow, the faster we grow, the more opportunities there are for everybody else in the organization. And people see that real tangible benefit of growth on them as we bring people from within. A lot of companies, when they grow, have to hire from the outside. And so one of the KPIs that we measure, and a lot of companies measure KPIs, and there's a lot that don't really matter that people measure, but I think one of the things that I really feel strongly about is that how many of our new hires are from within. And that is a throughput, that is a leading indicator to our success. If we're having to go outside, it means we're not doing a good job developing people. And that falls on our shoulders, not the people in the organization. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'd layer on is our environment, our culture is everything to us. And the way we measure on a daily basis is our stand-up huddle that Eric referred to earlier. A big Marine bell gets rung at 10:53, just whoever's closest to the bell at that time rings it. The entire office, hundreds of people come into this one big room where it's led by different leaders every single day because we're building a company of leaders. And we have this 7-minute stand-up meeting that good news, key metrics, what's going on in one specific department, missing systems, opportunities. And what this does is it allows us to pulse so quickly together. We know if our culture is strong or weak. We know if there's an elephant in the room, we need to investigate whatever's going on, but it just allows us to connect like a family dinner, a family sitting down 6 p.m. Hey, how was your day, honey? What's going on? That's our family dinner, and it's hugely impactful.
So to put that into context, it's like pulling most of you together every day, 10:55 for 7 minutes, having a conversation, having one of you in this room every day rotate through who's going to lead that huddle that day. So everybody has a chance to be up front, but we all come together, know where we are as an organization, look at our key performing indicators, know what we have to do. And so that is a big part of that leadership culture because everybody gets that opportunity to lead.
Hi, my name is John, business student here at the Mount. I got to ask kind of the obvious question. What do you do with the junk?
We take it to be recycled, donated. Worst case is the landfill. One of our measurable studies that we did, independent of the company, to find out where stuff was going and what percentage was going where, 61.3% gets diverted from landfills, recycled, reused, donated. We'll have truck team members that find great stuff that they'll end up using to furnish their apartment, with those kinds of things. But you're not really getting great stuff that we'd ever resell. It's stuff that's donatable, recyclable. That's it. Every city has transfer stations, a place you can take this stuff.
In fact, tomorrow night we're going to a charity fundraiser in Toronto called the Chair Fair, which is in support of the furniture bank. So we try and take whatever furniture we can, either from our moving company or our junk removal company, make that available to people who need furniture, whether it's new immigrants or people who are down on luck. It's a great organization. So if you have a chance, check out the furniture bank. It's not yet here in Halifax, but it's a way that we're able to help an organization because of what we do in our business. Keep things out of the landfill as well.
I'm Abby. I'm a business administration accounting student here. My question is, how did your personal values play a role in developing the values for the business when you started, and how have those values helped you make decisions going through the transformation of building your business into something greater?
That's a good question. So our values across all brands our four, it's in an acronym. Struggling, sorry. Our values are PIPE: passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy. And where those came from, we had 8 of us that were on a leadership team, management team back in the early days, and we took Post-it notes and we said, let's write all these words, put them up on a big wall of the things that we stand for, what we value, personally, professionally, who we are as a company. And we put them in categories, and it ultimately came out to almost every word fit into 4 words: passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy. We find passionate people that love what they do, that love customer experience, all the way down to empathy. It's, hey, WTF culture, we're willing to fail, we're willing to make mistakes, and cut each other some slack when we do. But the values personally, I think I felt in that session when I was working with the team, yeah, those are personal values. And having the integrity, all those things that were a part of that, and so they go together, thankfully, and it works really well. How do we use them in the company? You'll often hear people say, a decision gets made, and they'll say, you know, that wasn't very PIPE. And we'll talk about it, and we'll find out, well, what value or values were compromised, and how can we make a change, or how do we do it better next time?
On top of which, it's a great tool to have when you're interviewing, because you want to find people who share your values when they join the organization, or the corporate values. So if somebody doesn't have one of those elements when we're interviewing or bring somebody to the organization, it's just a non-starter. They could be the best person at whatever their task is, but if they don't share our values around empathy, it's just not going to work in our organization. So we're very protective of our culture and our values.
And one of the ways, layering on, that we protect our values and make sure we've got the right people, we've got something called the Beer and Bbq Test. So when we interview people, we put them through the Beer and Bbq Test. Now, don't rush out to Vancouver and think you're getting free drinks in an interview, but it's one of these things where we ask ourselves hypothetically, if I'm interviewing someone, I think, you know, would I have a beer with this person? Could I see myself spending some time with them? Are they interested? Do they have a passion in life? It doesn't have to be about business, but something that they could share with the company. We've got great diversity in the people we hire, both in their interests and where they come from. And what we find is that beer test is a good screen, and then the barbecue test is how would they fit with the rest of the business? If they were at a company barbecue, would they have fun? Would they fit in? Could they see themselves interacting with all the great people in our business? So.
And in fact, we've actually had people get all the way through an interview process. This is a great person, and then we go out for dinner, beer and barbecue test. At the end of the dinner, we don't hire them. Like they can really spend the time going through that. It is an important part of their business because, again, that's protecting what's really important to us, which is our culture and our people.
Question over there?
Hi there, I'm Dave. I'm a student from NSCC. So we can all agree we're creatures of habit. So both of you have different backgrounds, one through entrepreneurship, going through business, and one with success in school. What is a habit both on a professional side and a personal side? What's your most important habit you could think of?
I was correct. My academic career was not stellar. I just want to point that out.
So I'd say my most important habit is I get up at 5:55 a.m. It gives me 5 minutes every morning to sit down and set my intention for the day. So I literally sit down and I go, okay, what am I going to do today with my health, my family, the business, whatever it is. I'll write down 1 or 2 things so that I can stay focused and make sure those things happen. Whether it's, it could be making sure I go to the gym that day and incorporating it in if I'm traveling, or it could be a really key important business focus, but it's just writing down that intention. And I find the days that I get up at 5:55 and spend that 5 minutes, they're awesome days. The days that I don't do that, they're still great, but they're not as intentional. It's a commitment for myself for the day.
So not to be outdone, I like to get up at 5:30. And I changed the habit about a year ago. Because I used to, first thing I would do when I get up in the morning is I would look at my plan, my agenda, what am I going to do today, look at emails, I'd immediately get into my work. And we had a great speaker coach come to our organization called Warren Rustan. And Warren talked about what his morning looks like. And the first thing he does when he gets up, he has an exercise routine, he doesn't look at his email, he doesn't read the newspaper, but he thinks about what am I grateful for today, and what am I going to be grateful for at the end of the day. So for me, my morning has changed, going from immediacy of going into just jumping into email before I even get out of bed, to actually stopping, pausing, being intentional about that, looks like, and what am I going to be grateful for? What am I grateful for now, and what am I going to be grateful for at the end of the day? And having that daily vision. Then exercise. And now don't read any newspapers, read any news until the end of the day. And that's where I can digest at the end of the day all the bad stuff that's happening. I can actually filter it out, and it's gone by the next morning. But you can start your day off in a very intentional way, or you can start it off in a frenetic way and be influenced by outside factors that you can't impact. And so that actually, Creatures of Habit has changed a lot for me over the last year, and it's been a great change. Gabby, do we have time for a couple more questions? What's our timing? We have 5 minutes left. Okay.
Hi, so my name is Leanne Boudreau, and I'm a tourism and hospitality student at the Mount. And you said that culture and environment is such an important part to your business. And when did you realize that that was so important, and what changes did you notice that made you build upon it and continue to add to the culture and really emphasize it?
Yeah, the 1994 firing my 11 employees. That day was, I mean, I had the wrong people. I didn't have a culture, and if I could and knew to have a culture, it wasn't with that team. We weren't a team. We didn't enjoy working together. They weren't the positive, optimistic, happy people I want to be surrounded with. So I immediately got out there and said, time to search and find the right people. Slowly but surely, we're very much a slow to hire, quick to fire type organization. We want to find the right fit. And if we really have the wrong fit and we've tried to work with someone and taken the time, then we exit them from the business.
Earlier in my career, I worked for a couple of companies. The culture was really your numbers. It was hard driving. These are your numbers. The culture is we succeed when we win. It's individual achievement. And it worked to a point. And then I had the opportunity to work for a different organization. The culture was the primary factor. And I watched the difference in success. So for me personally, I went from a place where I didn't fully appreciate that to a place that was different, that had a huge culture focus. It was in the tourism industry, so lots of travel involved. And so I was a convert from that point, from experiencing both of those pieces.
It's amazing how you can feel culture in an organization immediately. So if you're familiar with the company Zappos in the US, about a $2 billion company that sells shoes online, I went down, I got introduced to the CEO, wanted to go down and visit and take a tour of the company, walked around, and it was like, you know, it was like walking through a candy shop. It was like just, you know, unbelievably, it was like Willy Wonka's, if you've seen that movie, it was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It was the energy, the enthusiasm, the craziness, and I just connected with the place, and I thought, this is unbelievable. I went back with some friends who wanted a tour a few years later, and they had been bought by Amazon. And nothing had changed physically. It looked exactly the same, but the feeling wasn't there. The energy was completely different. I didn't find myself leaving going, wow, this is unbelievable, and nor did my entrepreneur buddies. We found ourselves going, something's not right here. And so it's interesting how you can feel it the second you walk through. So pay attention when you visit companies, and if you ever want to come visit ours, if you're in Vancouver, you know, again, send us an email and come check it out.
Maybe to layer on top of the culture question is, I had, again, early in a career, I spent a lot of my time on mergers and acquisitions, going out and buying companies. And it was a challenge, because all of a sudden you realize the difficulty of merging cultures together is oftentimes more difficult than just building a business from scratch, that your business is, you build the culture right from the very beginning. And that is, I think a lot of people forget that you can't buy culture, you have to build it.
We have time for one very quick last question, and I've already promised it to the gentleman here.
Sure.
Hello, I'm Ephraim, a business fourth-year student. So since most of us here today have a plan to have a business sometime in the future, when do you think is the safest time to take the risk in quitting something that we are doing like work or school and engage ourselves doing full-time in a business that we think we are passionate about?
When is the safest time to quit everything?
To quit our work, our school, and to focus ourselves in the business that we think we are passionate about?
I think entrepreneurs don't know the word safe. You know, honestly, entrepreneurs that I know are willing to take a risk and not worry. If you're worried about safe, I don't know how committed you could be to taking a risk to start a business. If you go back and study anyone in the world that's created big, huge companies, whether it was Jobs and Woz with Apple or Roy and Walt Disney with Walt Disney, I mean, they quit things, they took risks. You know, I'm not suggesting by any means anyone go quit school like I did, especially that I'm in a school right now with all of you, but to me, I had something very early on that I knew was a problem with how I worked with school. So me giving that up was just, I had a business idea and I had to get going quicker. But I think someone takes the risk when it feels right and don't over question it. And it's never easy, I'll tell you that much. And you'll start a business. If you do start a business, you'll start one. And there will be times when you just go, I am crazy, I'm out of my tree. Other people are gonna tell you that. It's gonna be hard, painful. But then entrepreneurs weather that storm and get through it, because storms have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there is sunny skies on the end, but you gotta work through it.
I would say, in fact, the worst time to start a business is when you've got a safety net, because it's almost assuredly going to not succeed. Because what is going to have you be successful in your business is you are all in. There is nothing between you and that's success. You have to put food on your table. You've got to pay your rent. If you've got a safety net, chances of success go down. So when we look for franchise partners who we want to join our company and be partners with us, we look for 4 H's: happy, hardworking, hungry, and hands-on. And I think that hungry is probably one of the most important ones. And those people who aren't hungry, give up. It's a lot easier to give up than go on. And if you've got a safety net, I would say, so it's a roundabout way of saying, do it when you've got everything to lose.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Brian and Eric, for your talk, and please accept a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have a 15-minute break, but before this, I would ask you to please open the folders you received at registration and look at the conference schedule. I'll explain the 2:30 p.m. workshop as well as the 3:45 workshop sessions. As indicated on the conference schedule, the first workshop sessions are from 2:30 to 3:30. During this time, there are 4 concurrent workshops, and you'll select one to attend. I'll briefly introduce each workshop for you. Workshop session number 1 is held in McCain 106 and is hosted by the Chartered Professional Accountants. Sean Smith from CPA will walk you through the CPA designation, including what you need to know to start your designation and ultimately your career as a CPA. Workshop session number 2 is in Rosaria 105. It's hosted by the Center for Women in Business. They've brought together a group of female entrepreneurs who will answer your questions about starting a business. Even if you don't think entrepreneurship is in your future, everyone who works today has to think like an entrepreneur, so it would be very worth your while to attend. Workshop session number 3 is in Rosaria 309. It's hosted by Enterprise Car Rental. They'll introduce you to their first-class management trainee program. We have several Mount students working with Enterprise, and they all state that Enterprise is an excellent organization to work with. Enterprise has won a multitude of awards over the years as a top employer to work for on a worldwide basis. Workshop session number 4 is held in Vincent's in Rosario 300A. This session is designed for NSCC and Holland College students. It's an information session on how you can become what we call a 2+2 student. In this session, you'll learn how you can finish a university degree at the Mount 2 years after you graduate from NSCC or Holland College. Robin McIntosh from the Mount Recruitment Office will host this session. After the first workshop session ends at 3:30, we'll have a 15-minute break. At 3:45, we will have our second set of workshop sessions. From 3:45 to 4:45, 4 concurrent workshop sessions will be held, and you'll select one to attend. Each one of these workshop sessions will feature panelists who work in human resource management in various fields. I'll introduce each of these as well briefly. Workshop session number 5 will be held in McCain 106. The panelists in this workshop work in human resource management or in management generally. If you're thinking of pursuing a career in human resource management or management generally, you should attend this session. Workshop session number 6 will be held in Rosaria 105. The panelists in this workshop work in the tourism industry. If you're thinking of pursuing a career in tourism, you should attend this session and hear from the panelists themselves what they look for when they hire candidates in tourism. Workshop session number 7 will be held in Rosaria 309. The panelists in this workshop work in the accounting and finance sector. If you're thinking of pursuing a career in accounting or finance, you should attend this session and listen to panelists talk about what they look for when they hire. Finally, workshop session number 8 will be held in Rosaria 300A. The panelists in this workshop work in marketing. If you're thinking of pursuing a career in marketing, then you should attend this workshop. Thank you for your attention, and please enjoy your short break and make your way to the first breakout session at 2:30. Also, I would just like to make a last request. If every person could take 2 minutes just to clear off their garbage and as well take all of your personal belongings with you, as the room will be set for dinner when we come back. Thank you.